Have you ever noticed that when you truly start to change, the people around you begin to feel uncomfortable? They rarely express it directly. Instead, they mask it with jokes, concerned advice, or awkward silence whenever you bring up deeper topics. But deep down, something simple is happening. Your mental evolution threatens their comfort, and no one likes to confront their own complacency. Maybe you're going through this right now. You've started thinking differently, behaving differently, maybe even questioning things you once accepted without hesitation. And suddenly, you feel alone, misunderstood, judged. What no one told you, and what nature understood better than anyone, is that this is the price of building a powerful mind. Not just any kind of strength, but a force so intense, so real, it makes others uncomfortable. It frightens them. Without saying a word, your presence exposes the weakness of those still living on autopilot. Why? Because a truly strong mind is a threat to collective mediocrity. When you begin to think for yourself, to create your own values, to abandon the comforting illusion of ready-made truths, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the system, dangerous to others, but most of all, dangerous to your old self. This is a challenge, not a comfort. It's for those tired of being prisoners of their own insecurities, for those standing on the edge of internal rupture, ready to build something no one can break, a mind that no one can manipulate, a mind that terrifies because it refuses to kneel. If you are ready for this path, a lonely, difficult, but utterly transformative one, stay. What nature has to teach you may confront you, but it can also free you. And after that, you'll never think the same way again. Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher. He was a surgeon of the human soul, someone brave enough to stare into the abyss of existence, not only to face it, but to dive into it. And it was in that abyss, in that inner chaos most avoid, that he found the source of true strength. Because nature does not transform humans in peace, stability, or order. It's in pain, in the fall, in chaos. He wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." That's not poetic metaphor, it's psychological diagnosis. If you want to build an unshakable mind, reject the childish idea that it comes through comfort, cheap motivation, or positive affirmations. True strength is born when you face pain and do not run. When you stop asking life to be easier and start wishing to be stronger. Think of the moments when you grew the most. Was it when everything was fine? Or when you were crushed, lost, directionless, and had to rebuild yourself with your bare hands? Nietzsche believed pain wasn't a flaw in existence, but its driving force. He didn't romanticize pain. He saw it as a tool. If you can change your relationship with pain, failure, and solitude, you begin to forge something rare. A wild, untamed spirit. And that's when the world starts to feel uneasy around you. While most run from chaos, you'll learn to walk through it. While others beg for normality, you'll create greatness. But this transformation requires a violent break from everything you were taught about strength. Being strong doesn't mean constantly smiling. It doesn't mean fake emotional control. It means enduring the unbearable and emerging on the other side, even more dangerous. But nature knew chaos alone isn't enough. It can destroy you if you lack an inner center, an anchor. That's why Nietzsche takes it further. He kills God, handing you the full weight of existential responsibility. With no sky to look to, the universe must now be born within you. When Nietzsche said God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He was warning. What he killed wasn't a divine being, it was the illusion. The illusion that there's a higher power taking care of everything. That life has a preset meaning handed to you from above. The death of God is the end of excuses. And that's terrifying, because up until then, it was easy to outsource responsibility for your life. It was comforting to believe that pain had a divine reason, that a higher good would justify it all in the end. Nature violently tears off that veil. It looks you in the eye and says, "You are alone." There is no ready-made meaning. Now you are the creator. And that's where the true construction of a strong mind begins. Because most people collapse when they realize they're alone in the chaos, with no manual, no guarantees, no one to blame. But those who have the courage to face it without breaking, begin forging an unshakable consciousness. With the death of God, nature throws you into the abyss of radical freedom. You no longer follow orders. You must create values. You don't obey, you must overcome yourself. This is the birth of violent autonomy. And with it, the burden. Everything now depends on you. No more forgiveness. No more salvation. Either you build yourself, or you drown. But here's the secret. The same freedom that terrifies you is also the greatest source of power you'll ever have. Once you realize no one is coming to save you, something inside you ignites. A fire that forces you to rise even when you're bleeding. That makes you think for yourself, feel for yourself, act not because someone said it's right, but because you decided it is. In this rupture from existential supports, Nietzsche prepares the ground for something even more magnificent, a new way of being. A type of human that doesn't live by herd rules, who needs no approval or permission. A being who creates their own morality, who surpasses limits and lives as a creator. A being that frightens the weak because it forces them to see themselves as they really are. Nietzsche gave this being a name, the Übermensch, the Overman. And that's what we must now explore. If you want to build a mind so strong no one can break it, you need to understand how to become this person who lives beyond conventions, guided only by their own will to power. Let's dive into that. Nietzsche didn't believe in slow, passive human evolution. He believed in rupture, in radical transformation, in creative destruction. That's why he conceived the idea of the Übermensch, not a superhero, not someone with secret powers, but a being who has overcome everything that binds ordinary humans. Guilt, obedience, herd morality, the need for acceptance. The Übermensch does not seek approval. He does not ask permission to exist. He creates his own inner laws and lives by them, even if it sets him against the entire world. And that is why his mind becomes unbreakable, because it is not built on the expectations of others. He needs no external validation to be real. He is self-sufficient, fueled by his will to power, the deep urge to shape reality in his own image. That is the essence. The Übermensch does not adapt to the world. He imposes meaning on it. He does not seek comfort. He seeks greatness. He does not ask, is this allowed? He asks, is this worth it for me? This shift in perspective changes everything, because when you start to see yourself not as a servant but as a creator, your thoughts, actions, and emotions transform completely. But here lies the challenge. To become this kind of being, sacrifice is required. You must kill parts of yourself, still craving approval. You must face the pain of not belonging. You must bear the burden of building your identity from scratch, with no guarantees, no applause. Most people can't handle that. They give up before they begin. They run back to the safety of inherited beliefs, doctrines, and rules someone else wrote for them. The path to the Übermensch is lonely, and Nietzsche knew this. He himself lived on the margins, misunderstood, called mad, isolated from the world he tried to free. But it was in that isolation he found his freedom, and you must too. The stronger your mind becomes, the further you drift from the crowd. The higher you rise, and the more you disturb. The construction of the Übermensch is the most violent and transformative process one can undergo, because it requires destroying everything that isn't truly yours. Everything imposed by a sick culture, by a society that fears authenticity, and only after destruction can you begin to build. But that creation doesn't happen in the crowd. It happens in silence, in isolation, in the deep loneliness that separates the strong from the weak. And that is why, in the next part, we will dive into why doesn't the world go after those who are the same? It goes after those who dare to stand out. Nietzsche wasn't afraid of tyrants, authoritarian leaders, or declared oppressors. What he feared and denounced with philosophical fury was the subtle and corrosive power of collective mediocrity. That invisible system that keeps everyone small, that punishes those who dare to think differently, that rewards obedience and disguises cowardice as virtue. According to nature, true tyranny doesn't come from above. It comes from the sides, from the crowd that demands you stay small so it won't have to grow. And that's exactly what happens when you begin to stand out. When your mind becomes sharper, your spirit more grounded, your presence more unsettling, you start to bother people. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something rare. You're breaking the mold, and society hates those who break the mold. Collective mediocrity cannot stand individual brilliance. because that brilliance exposes the darkness of ordinary life. Nietzsche called it slave morality, an ethic created by those who, unable to achieve greatness, decided to invert values, turning strength into arrogance, ambition into selfishness, independence into coldness. And with that, they created a moral system that protects the weak and condemns the strong. But don't be mistaken, it's not out of compassion, it's out of resentment. Because the weak don't want to be saved, they want the strong to be destroyed. That's why, when you begin to free yourself, they start to attack you. Sometimes directly, other times subtly, with looks, silence, irony. But the message is clear. Come back to the group. You make us feel small, and you do, just by being who you are. Nietzsche understood that most people live in a state of paralyzing conformity, a life shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience. And anyone who questions that is seen as a threat. But don't be fooled. Mediocrity doesn't attack with strength. It attacks with numbers, with consensus, with the weight of repetition. It will try to make you doubt yourself, make you believe you're wrong for not fitting in. It will use every social weapon, from shame to exclusion, to make you lower your head. And this is the moment where many give up, because they can't stand being the weird ones, the difficult ones, the arrogant ones. But nature would give you another name, necessary. Because while the world spins around recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and comfortable truths, it is the strong individual who brings the necessary disruption for something new to be born. Your difference is the spark of transformation. But it's also the target of resistance. To be strong, to think freely, to live autonomously, these are acts of war against collective mediocrity. And like every war, this requires preparation. It requires weapons, but not physical ones, mental ones. And that is exactly what we will now discuss in the final part. Because building a mind so strong that it terrifies people comes at a high cost, but it also brings a reward no one can take from you. If you've made it this far, you're already different from most. Most people would have clicked away at the first discomfort, the first challenge, as soon as they realized this isn't content designed to stroke the ego. This is a call to action. A call to those who are ready to leave behind the comfortable illusion and face reality with eyes wide open. Because building a mind that strong is not just a choice, it's a sacrifice. You will lose. You'll lose friendships built on shallowness. You'll lose opportunities that demand submission. You'll lose the ability to be satisfied with less. But in return, you'll gain something priceless: integrity, clarity, presence. You'll begin to notice that most people live in a fog, and your clarity frightens them, that your stability makes others tremble, that your absence is louder than most people's presence. This power doesn't come from outside. It's not taught in self-help books. It's not gained with catchy quotes or empty affirmations. It's carved deep into the soul, in the silence of hard nights, in the choices no one sees. It's the result of an inner war between who you were and who you're becoming. And that war never ends, because the truly strong are not those who have already won. They're those who keep fighting, even when they could stop. Nature didn't want to create followers. It wanted to trigger inner earthquakes. It wanted you to stop begging for approval, to stop pleading for meaning, to stop searching in ready-made systems for something that can only be built through blood, sweat, and awareness. It wanted you to become dangerous, not in the violent sense, but in a rare way. So rare that your mere existence forces others to look in the mirror and face what they've been avoiding. So now, I invite you to do something that will solidify this process. Write in the comments one truth you're tired of hiding, one opinion you're afraid to express, one thought that makes you feel isolated, but that reflects your true self. This is part of the journey, to claim your voice, to show your presence, and above all, to declare that you will not conform anymore. And if this video moved you, if something inside you awakened, don't stop here. The next video is just as important, maybe even more. It continues this journey. And if you've made it this far, you know you're not watching just out of curiosity. You're here because something inside you has already begun to change. So keep going. You are not alone. You are ahead. And that, my friend, is terrifying. but it is also liberating.
Thank you for watching this video and dedicating time to your own well-being. Health and well-being are not just the absence of problems, but the active care of all aspects of our lives, from financial stability and self-care to personal development and managing our goals. Remember, well-being is a journey, not a destination. Every small change you make, every positive habit you incorporate, and every goal you set contributes to achieving a balanced and fulfilling life. Apply the strategies we discussed. Adapt them to your personal needs and watch your life transform for the better. If you have any questions or want to share your experience, leave a comment below. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more videos that will help you live a full and happy life. Until next time, take care of yourself and be well.